Before this episode, if you want to see the words as well as hear them, get exclusive content, access to the regular episodes before anyone else, and take part in the monthly questions and comments edition, you can subscribe to this podcast on Spotify and get all of that for the price of a very average coffee a month. Okay, let's get on with it. Cole Allen is a former NASA intern. He's an engineering graduate. He's a teacher of the month. He's a guy that his classmates called borderline genius. That's before he started running through the security checkpoint at the White House Correspondents' Dinner. And before he did that, he sat down and he wrote more than 1,000 words, and he sent them to his family, titling himself the Friendly Federal Assassin. Now, you've heard the news story. What I want to show you is the document, because the way Cole Allen wrote this, the words that he chose, the structure he used, and the things he said and the things he didn't say, that tells a completely different story. Welcome to Never a Truer Word, where we look at the words that people choose to use to see if they're telling the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. I've analysed the words of thousands of criminals, so I know how people use words to lie, to cheat and manipulate, and I can show you how they do that, and I can show you what the truth sounds like as well. So Cole Allen seemed to want to assassinate President Trump. It's the biggest news story going, and the most insight we have into what was going on with him is his manifesto. So I'm going to look at the words he uses in that manifesto, and more than that, I think what's more instructive in all of this are the patterns that exist inside this manifesto. So let's start at the very beginning. He says, "Hello, everybody." Now, when we look at a statement, when I look at a statement, I like to look at who's being addressed by the statement. Who's the audience? Who's the intended audience? And we have this, "Hello, everybody." Is everybody everyone he sent it to? That's his family, I believe, or is that the wider world? Because this is something that is going to have impact in the whole, across the whole world. So who is everybody? Is it all of us, or is it just his family? I think it's all of us, because that's why he says everybody, not just the people he sent it to. So I may have given a lot of people a surprise today. Let me start off by apologising to those whose trust I abused. And two of the patterns we will see in this manifesto come through in that line. Let me start off by apologising. And he does a lot of apologising here. In fact, one of the things I think comes through in his writing is low self-esteem. And so the first thing he's going to do is apologise. He has a mindset that when people get this and when people see what I've done, they're not going to think well of me. Not people are going to think I'm a hero. Not here's why I'm doing what I'm doing. No, I'm going to start off by apologising to people. The other thing I noticed here is some of the manifestos I've seen recently, I'm thinking of Luigi Mangioni's, there's a sense of arrogance throughout it, you know, like, this is how great I am. It was really easy for me to do this, was in Luigi's. There is none of that, apart from something towards the very end from Cole here. There's no arrogance. It's all, I think, low self-esteem. So he's starting off by apologising and trying to get, you know, almost back in people's good books. And he's apologising to everyone whose trust I abused. And abuse is another pattern that goes all the way through this, which we will talk about as we go. But abuse, just watch out for mentions of abuse. And then he lists all the people he's apologising to. I apologise to my parents for saying I had an interview without specifying it was for Most Wanted. So, you know, apologising for lying to his parents. Maybe not the biggest thing he did wrong that day, but that's the first thing that he wants to apologise for, lying to his parents. Now, I don't get a massive sense from him that he wanted fame or infamy from what he did, but I do see a couple of little things as we go through it, which I'll talk about. And this is, you know, the fact that he'd be interviewed on TV. This is the fact that he would be on Most Wanted. You know, he would have some recognition for what he did. He then says, I apologise to my colleagues and students. Again, this is an apology for lying, not for what he did, for saying I had a personal emergency. He really doesn't like the fact he's let people down. He wants to say, I'm sorry for letting people down. Does he feel he's let a lot of people down in his lifetime? You know, this low self-esteem thing I think we've got here. By the time anyone reads this, I probably most certainly do need to go to ER, but can hardly call that a non-self-inflicted status. Now look at that first apology to his parents. He thinks he's going to be interviewed on Most Wanted. Even if it's a joke, it's in his head. said that he could be interviewed, and he thinks he will be in ER for his colleagues. So both the first two apologies suppose he will be alive after this assassination attempt. Now that's quite interesting for me. Why does he not think that he's going to be running through a place with guns? Why doesn't he think he's just going to be shot and eliminated, and that he will be caught? Not that he is going to get away with it. There's nothing in this manifesto that says he thinks he's going to get away with this. He wants to get caught, but has in his head he's going to get caught, but he still thinks that he's going to be alive after it. More apologies. I apologise to all of the people I travelled next to, all of the workers who handled my luggage, and the other non-targeted people at the hotel who I put in danger simply by being near. Another theme we see all the way through this is he mentions all the people he did not want to hurt. In fact, he spends more time talking about people he didn't want to hurt than people he does want to hurt. Then we've got abuse coming up again. We've got apology and abuse in the same paragraph here. I apologise to everyone who was abused and or murdered before this, to all those who suffered before I was able to attempt this, to all who may still suffer after, regardless of my success or failure. I think here, again, low self-esteem. I think there is a low chance of success in his words. So I apologise to all those before I was able to attempt this. Not do this, it's just an attempt. So I think that suggests low thought of success in what he was doing, and also saying that people will still suffer afterwards, regardless of my success or failure. I think failing, just not being very good at this, was on his mind. Again, low self-esteem. And look, we have abused again. I apologise to everyone who was abused. He then says, I don't accept forgiveness, but if I could have seen any other way to get this close, I would have taken it. Again, my sincere apologies. Now, that's weird because he's apologising for lying to people. If there was another way of getting close without lying, is that what he's talking about? I'm not entirely sure. To get this close, I would have taken it. You still need to apologise for people, I think, on the back of that. So I'm not sure these are sincere apologies, but yeah, it's certainly low self-esteem coming through. On to why I did any of this. I am a citizen of the United States of America. What my representatives do reflects on me. I am no longer willing to permit, and then he lays out some certain allegations I think could be laid out at the president, which I won't name because I don't want to get censored, and traitor to coat my hands with his crimes. But the two things that he does mention are, again, abuse there. So the abuse theme goes on. Then he puts in brackets, well, to be completely honest, I was no longer willing a long time ago, but this was the first real opportunity I've had to do something about it. And that word real qualifies this. It's not this is the first opportunity I've had to do, but first real opportunity, suggesting he may have considered other options. He may have been thinking about this for a long time. Nothing really panned out for him. And this is the first real opportunity I've had to do something about it. While I'm discussing this, I'll also go over my expected rules of engagement. So he's moved on. Those reasons for doing it, I'm not entirely sure. He doesn't like Donald Trump. He doesn't like what Donald Trump's been accused of or what Donald Trump has done. But he's skipped over that really quickly. That manifesto, saying why you did it, some justification for why you did it. It's all over in a flash here. And then he goes on to talking about the people he doesn't want to hurt again, because he says, while I'm discussing this, I'll probably go over my expected rules of engagement. Again, low self-esteem, he says, probably in a terrible format, but I'm not military, so too bad. So again, he's kind of saying, here's what I'm rubbish at. Here's what I'm not very good at. Low self-esteem. Then he says, administration officials, not including Mr. Patel, they are targets prioritised from highest ranking to lowest. Now, he does, once more, he lays out the targets, but you'll notice that he's saying who's not a target. It's highest ranking to lowest. So only one person was the highest ranked, and then everyone else was less of a target. Almost like, look, I'm a good guy. Here's the people, the lower priority people that I didn't want to hurt. That much is interesting. And also, not including Mr. Patel, Kash Patel is the only person he names in this entire manifesto. He doesn't name anyone else. He doesn't name Donald Trump, for example. Not once does he name Donald Trump. I know people have pulled that out and gone, why is he the only person mentioned by name? I don't know. I just know that he's the only person mentioned by name, not just in terms of like who the targets could be, but also anyone in his life as well. His parents, friends, names none of them, just Mr. Patel. And then we have a list of other people. So, Secret Service, they are targets only if necessary. So not targets, do you know what I mean? Like only if necessary. And to be incapacitated non-lethally if possible. So again, who he's not targeting, who he doesn't want to harm. AKA, I hope they're wearing body armour because centre mass with shotguns messes up people who aren't. Hotel security, not targets at all. He's telling us he's spending more time on who's not the targets than the people who are the targets and his reasons for doing it. So they're not targets at all, AKA, unless they shoot at me. Capitol Police, same as hotel security, not targets. National Guard, same as hotel security, not targets. Hotel employees, not targets at all. So he spends a lot of time telling us who he doesn't want to hurt. It's so strangely laid out. Guests, not targets at all. Then in order to minimise casualties, so again, not doing harm is the big thing that comes through in this. I will also be using buckshot rather than slugs, less penetration through walls. So he spends way more time on non-targets and almost like why he's a nice guy and why he's relatable rather than talking about targets and reasons for doing what he did. And then he says, I will still go through most everyone here to get to the targets if they were absolutely necessary on the basis that most people chose to attend a speech by lays out the allegations against Trump again and traitor and thus are complicit. So we have abuse there again. The allegations contain abuse. But I really hope it doesn't come to that. So again, what a nice guy I am. And then he goes on to another section, which is called rebuttals to objections. So once again, he's sort of low self-esteem. These are the objections I'm going to get. These are the people that are going to think I'm stupid or not doing the right thing, and I want to rebut them. So he just doesn't think very much of himself or his plan. Objection 1. As a Christian, you should turn the other cheek. Rebuttal. Turning the other cheek is when you yourself are oppressed. I'm not the person something done to in a detention camp. I'm not the fisherman executed without trial. I'm not the school kid blown up or a child starved or a teenage girl abused by the many criminals in this administration. So once more, the theme is abuse. Although he's talking about turning the other cheek, he says he can't do that when abuse is involved. Turning the other cheek is when someone else is oppressed. Turning the other cheek when someone else is impressed is not Christian behaviour. It is complicity with the oppressor's crimes. Objection 2. This is not a convenient time for you to do this. I'm not sure that is the second biggest objection that will come through, but this is what's in his head. The rebuttal. I need whoever thinks this way to take a couple of minutes to realise the world isn't about them. Now that's the language of control. I need you to do this, not I'd like you to do this, please do this. I need you to do this. So has he got a controlling personality somewhere within him? Then he says, do you think when I see someone, and then again he lays out some abuse or murdered or abused, so abuse comes up again, I should walk on by because it would be inconvenient for people who aren't the victim. This was the best timing and chance of success I could come up with, again suggesting that he's thought of more plans and this is the best one, even though he thinks it's kind of rotten, doesn't have much chance of success, and his reasons for doing it need rebutted. Low on confidence again. Objection 3, you didn't get them all. Rebuttal, got to start somewhere. Low chance of success coming through in his head again. Objection 4. As a half black, half white person, you shouldn't be the one doing this. Rebuttal. I don't see anyone else picking up the slack. Objection 5. Yield unto Caesar what is Caesar's. Rebuttal. The United States of America are ruled by the law. Now, does he really believe that? Because he's breaking the law kind of big time by going to shoot the president and the people around him. Not by any one or several people. Insofar as representatives and judges do not follow the law, no one is required to yield to them anything so unlawfully ordered. I would also like to extend my appreciation to a great many people, since I will not be likely to be able to talk to them again unless the Secret Service is astoundingly incompetent. So again, he didn't think he was going to get away with this at all. This was, not something that was going to kill him, but something he was going to get caught for. Low chance of success, low self-esteem. And then he does some thank yous. Thank you to my family, both personal and church, for your love over these 31 years. Interesting that he lumps his family in with his church family. So, no specific part pulled out to talk to his family on their own and then to talk about what the church has given him. No, his family get lumped in with church as in, I guess family important as people he spends a lot of time with that are not family. An interesting way of doing it. Thank you to my friends for your companionship over many years. Thank you to my colleagues over many jobs for your positivity and professionalism. Thank you to my students for your enthusiasm and love of learning. I get a sense of loneliness there because the family are the same as the church. He thanks friends for companionship, but no one in specific, no one specific or even like a group of close friends or anything like that. Colleagues for your professionalism and positivity. Thanks to the students. This is all quite remote, people where, he spends more time on friends, colleagues, students than he does on family, for example. And then he says, thank you to the acquaintances. People you're not close with are acquaintances. People you've met, people you know but don't, spend a lot of time with or, have a lot of relationship with. Those are acquaintances. And so again, this loneliness there. So thank you to the many acquaintances I've met in person and online. And I think online is doing a lot of work there. Was he in chat rooms? Was he, talking about doing this or sowing the seeds of this with other people? Or was it online people who sort of got him interested in fighting this abuse? For short interactions and long-term relationships from your perspectives and inspiration, I think online is the key to some of the things that drove him wanting to do this. But you'll notice that he doesn't thank a single person by name. It's all groups of people: family, church, acquaintances, friends, students. No names whatsoever. Thank you all for everything. Sincerely, Cole, cold-forced, friendly federal assassin Alan. And this is the other bit where I think, is there a little bit of arrogance or desire for fame going on here? Because he's writing his own nicknames. And I see that serial killers are great at this. The serial killers that will kill and then write to the police or write to the press, they like to invent their own nicknames because they want to control how they are seen, how they are remembered, and so on. And that's something he's doing here by making up his own nickname. It's something you only do if you think about the sort of legacy that you're going to leave behind by doing all of this. Cold-forced, friendly federal assassin. Friendly comes before assassin. It's not assassin who is friendly. The friendly thing comes first, which is, again, he wants to be seen as the nice guy here. Here's all the people that are not targets. Here's all the people that I'll leave alone if unless I really have to. And by the way, I am friendly. Now, this was obviously written in two parts because he's signed off here and then he's going to go on to something that's a bit more immediate and not these wide themes that he's been talking about, but talking about the security at the hotel. And there's a real tone change here, which he even acknowledges himself by saying, P.S. Okay, now all the sappy stuff is done. What the hell is the Secret Service doing? Sorry, gotta rant a bit here and drop the formal tone. I expected security cameras at every bend, bugged hotel rooms, armed agents every 10 feet, metal detectors out in the wazoo. What I got, who knows, maybe they're pranking me, is nothing. No damn security, not in transport, not in hotel, not in the event. Again, was he expecting to be caught before this? Was he thinking he'd rock up at the hotel and Secret Service would just pop him straight away and see what he was up to? And now he's gone so far that, geez, I might have to do something here, even though I don't want to, because I think it's got a low chance of success. And I think, my idea's, not that good. And I really don't want to hurt anyone anyway, because I'm friendly. The last thing I immediately noticed walking into the hotel is a sense of arrogance. I walk in with multiple weapons and not a single person there considers the possibility I could be a threat. Again, low self-esteem. He wanted the significance of being a threat, yeah? But it didn't happen to him and that disappointed him. That should be a sense of joy to him, but no, he notices that it's not a great thing. The security at the event is all outside, focused on protesters and current arrivals, because apparently no one thought about what happens if someone checks in the day before. This level of incompetence is insane, and this is, again, just a little hint of arrogance, but nowhere near what I normally see in any of this. And I very sincerely hope it is corrected by the time this country gets competent leadership again. He should really be grateful of this, but I really think he expected to get caught well before the act. If I was an Iranian agent instead of an American citizen, I could have bought a damn mad juice in here and no one would have noticed shit. Actually insane. Oh, and if anyone is curious how doing something like this feels, it's awful. I want to throw up. I want to cry. And I believe that. I believe he does feel these things because they're said in a very straightforward, matter-of-fact manner, which is what the truth tends to sound like. People don't work hard to convince you of the truth. People just let it all come out. It's awful. I want to throw up. I want to cry for all the things I wanted to do and never will. For all the people whose trust this betrays. I experience rage thinking about everything this administration has done. Can't really recommend it. Stay in school, kids, is how he signs off. So listen, what do I see there in that manifesto from Cole Adams? I see low self-esteem. He's focused on how rubbish he is, the apologies that he's got to give out, the low chance of success with this plan of his that he's got going on. There is this theme of abuse running through it. He really seems to be railing against abuse, and I wonder, does abuse feature in his past life, maybe his childhood, or more recently, but I really do think abuse figures in there. It's very impersonal. As much as he talks to these large groups of people, he doesn't talk one-on-one with anyone. No naming of the targets who anger him, no naming of Donald Trump or JD Vance or anyone that angers him whatsoever. Mr. Patel is the only person that gets a mention. No naming of any individuals in his life. I think this is a lonely guy and not much to say. It was all quite cliches about what these large groups of people had brought to him as well. So I think a real sense of loneliness in his life. But the low self-esteem, I think, is really prevalent there. And I do think that abuse featured in his life as well. What do you think? I am at Jack Fox, NATW on the socials if you want to get hold of me and tell me what you think. If you want a load more like this, do subscribe to this channel because that will just get you regular updates on the words of people in the news, or check out more at neveratruerword.com. We'll see you soon for something new from Never a Truer Word, and remember, the truth is always in the words.